fish.
Yes.
Also called bangus. Yeah, I actually haven't tried this specific dish yet at the Filipino restaurant just because bangus is not normally in this presentation.
What is it usually? Like it's usually a whole fish?
It's usually whole fish, definitely fried.
Yeah.
Sometimes people put tomato on, like chopped tomato, chopped egg, like scrambled egg. But this is kind of like interesting. So we'll see how it goes. So this is gonna be our first for the both.
Your mom ever teach you that you had to, when you use a spoon, had to be away from it?
Yeah. Especially with the soups.
Yes.
It's funny. Like at one point, my parents knew that we were going to be living in Canada. So I think starting the age of 7, which would be like maybe 7, 8, 9, like 3 years before I had actually moved to Canada, my parents started preparing me how to eat with a knife and fork. Wow. No, knife and fork.
Knife and fork.
Yeah, because otherwise it would be knife and spoon, or fork and spoon, or our hands.
Or your hands.
So, when I came here, I'm just like, it's not really a common practice. And like, of course, when I first moved to Canada, our first point of contact would be like the Filipino people, the Filipino families. And I mean, they would be eating with a spoon and fork. And I'm like, what was this?
What did they make me do?
Why did they make me do this? Like, you just made my life harder. I'm 7 years old.
It changed my way of eating and living.
Yeah. That's really funny. I had that experience when a lot of the other Filipinos who also moved, even at a younger age than I did, they were just like, yeah, my parents never really taught me any of that. I'm like, huh.
Was there anything else they prepare you for? Do you remember when they told you that you'd be moving to Canada? Do you remember that?
I do remember. So the reason that we would tell people, like the people in the Philippines, why we were going to Canada was because my sister wanted to pursue her post-secondary education in Canada, which is true, but really the main thing was the free healthcare. Yes. Let's be real. The free healthcare was a very big factor as to why, and it was already easy for at least my family because they had already been established in Canada. Yeah,
they already had people here.
Yeah, like my grandma, they would do to keep their citizenship, they would do 6 months in the Philippines, 6 months in Canada. My sister was born in Canada. So, and yeah, it was already easy. Like, had we started from the very beginning, like complete scratch,
that would have been hard.
It might have been a little bit harder, but like I've been a Canadian citizen since I was 6 years old, and I've never even been out of the country. Like I just had the card. Yeah, I was like chilling. But yeah, that was fun. How I felt being told that we were moving to Canada, of course I was sad. But my selling point for Canada was that I would be closer to getting a chance of bumping into a celebrity. That's why I wasn't so sad. I was just like,
I might Moira reason ever.
I might meet Robert Pattinson.
You still have this logic now sometimes.
Hey, and
do you hear the hairstyles in Vancouver?
I know. I saw the photos and I'm like, Harry Styles with girlfriend Taylor recently. Yeah, and I'm like looking at the photos and I'm like, this looks like a pier. This could either be White Rock or like North Van.
It was North Van.
But it just said Canada. The post that I saw, it was just Canada. And I'm like, okay, Canada's so big. And what does he care about Vancouver? He obviously doesn't because he didn't have a Love on Tour date here.
Yeah.
The audacity. Okay, so have your first bite. Let me know what you think. If it needs sauce.
It smells so good.
Okay, I don't think it needs sauce.
No, it's good.
Would you like to try the sauce?
Sure, I would.
It's like, this is just like a super quick version. It's soy sauce, vinegar, and that chili that came in the thing. I chopped it up, so it's a little bit spicy. You don't need a lot of it.
Okay.
Put a little bit,
This much?
But yeah, I do remember that I get to meet Robert Pattinson.
How old were you then? Like 6, 7? Or was that later?
I found out, so I moved here May 2012. So it was just a month away from my 12th birthday. I found out like a year prior, maybe even less, that we were like fully moving. Okay. Because prior to that trip, prior to our official move, my sister and I had visited Canada for the first time. For me, for the first time. My sister, since she left many, many years ago in the 90s.
Yeah.
So it was like, I guess, I didn't think about it, like this was kind of like your trial run, how you'd be able to live in Canada type situation. It was just like, oh, here's a plane ticket. You get to finally experience Canada. So, yeah. So I was prepared and I wasn't prepared. I think it's mostly, I didn't process it as much because I was a kid and I was looking at, the bright side and stuff. And I just thought that, oh, I'm going to come back in the Philippines. I'm going to come back here and live here again. But, that didn't happen. But that's okay, though. I think that's for the better.
Yeah.
It did take me, I want to say, 5 years, more towards the end of like high school.
End of high school, yeah. You felt settled more?
Yeah. Did I appreciate living in Canada?
Yeah.
In Vancouver, especially. But yeah, it's always fun going back home, even if it's not too often. It's nice, I would say, and I had this conversation with another Filipino Canadian very recently. She was like, it's always nice to go back in the Philippines because we don't live in the Philippines anymore. Like, it's good to be back as what they call a balikbayan or a tourist or like a foreigner or something, because you really get the most out of it. With what little you have financially, it will still go a really long way. You'll feel like a millionaire. And I did. I felt so rich.
What changed for you? Because it took around 5 years at the end of high school. What changed for you?
I think what I learned about that is that Canada gave me the opportunity to be more independent. The fact that I had a job by 15, 16 years old, and that I was able to work and save up to go back home to the Philippines by myself with my own money, and also fund a side trip with my cousins who are much older than me and have big girl jobs. That's actually when I knew, when I was okay, maybe life in Canada is significantly better than in the Philippines. Because we would be going out, and I had my friends and family treat me, but in other cases, I would just be dropping thousands of pesos like it was nothing. And my friends would have to be withdrawing from the ATM using their parents' bank card. And I'm like, please.
I have a part-time retail job.
Yeah, I'm making $800 a paycheck, which is more than what a teacher makes in the Philippines, which is insane.
Yeah.
But yeah, the independence was definitely a big thing. I also got to really appreciate the nature. Being able to have an environment where I can escape, especially when we were living up in Parkway. The cul-de-sac across us has that little trail that connects to Eagle Ridge Trail or something. Yeah. So that was nice.
It's nice in there.
It's very nice, and it was very convenient if I wanted to get away and I was feeling overwhelmed with something. Just
the space.
Yeah, the space, the nature, just being surrounded by nature definitely made me realize that wherever I decide to live, there's got to be at least a park system, there's got to be some way for me to chill out outside of the home space type thing. I don't know why it's like that. There are such stark differences between going to a concert or a festival across the border, which is only like 2 hours away, to here. Maybe I even want to say that the people here are less friendly. And that's actually something I learned on exchange. Vancouverites specifically, not the friendliest Canadians.
I've seen that critique a lot recently online. People being like, help, how do I make friends in Vancouver? It's like, I just moved here for a job and I don't know how to make friends because no one is talking to me.
Yeah. It's not... Okay, maybe I wouldn't say that Vancouverites are rude. But yeah, unfriendly.
Like, they just like keep to their own bubble,
They do.
I think.
They do. Yeah, which is kind of sad. I mean, maybe it's the Asian. Is that a stereotype?
Are you talking about specifically?
Just like the typical, like, Asian group.
In Vancouver?
In Vancouver, only
Let's
having
talk
an
about
Asian
it.
group.
There is like a sense of exclusiveness and like elitism from groups like that. But do you want to elaborate? Like, what are you thinking about?
Not to say that the Asian group that I'm in, they are exclusive, but it's like they're not trying to seek
New people.
Especially ones that are not Asian.
Yeah.
Like, it's like they're not trying to seek
New people.
Especially ones that are not Asian.
Yeah.
I think with that, I always knew that I was comfortable by myself. But after doing the solo traveling aspect especially, I know that I can be by myself. And if I wanted to make more friends or new friends, I could definitely do that. But yeah, you're so right. I don't really rely on them anymore. I don't think about my membership in that group as something that's like fish out of water type thing. And that's okay. I can always be like, yeah, well, I went traveling by myself. You know, I lived in Europe. What did you do? Sit in front of your computer.
Did your rank change? I was away.
Damn. That's funny. Maybe it also is an upbringing type thing. Because my parents were always politically involved. Like, even in the Philippines, they always voted. And here, also, they were like, you should always vote. Like, it's the only, like, you know, it's your civic duty. So I know there are a lot of like families out there, especially like Asian families that I find that I've been talking to that don't have that kind of, or that's not really at the top of their priority list when it comes to being a contributing member of society.
Yeah, it's like voting is the one I think that's at your fingertips. You can at least start there, I think. I'm not asking them to be radical. I'm not inviting them to the next march or rally because I know they're likely not going to come with me, but it's like you could at least do this one thing.
Yeah, at the very least.
Yeah, because I think whether you like it or not, you absorb a lot of like the Western culture that you live in, and so I think especially growing up, you absorb a lot of like the individualism because it slots in really well with when you're a teenager and you want to do everything on your own, you want to decide everything, you want to be independent.
Yeah.
So it like blends in really well. But I think also it's the distance, it's the privilege that it affords you because you're no longer at the center of it.
Yeah.
So when I'm living in Canada and I don't have to worry about like my power going out, I don't have to worry about being bombed. It's so much easier for me to go on with my little life and I don't know, focus on whatever I'm focusing on, most likely career-wise, capitalist-wise, compared to people that are like so much closer to it, geographically even.
Yeah, like in a lot of cases, especially now, it's like, what am I gonna eat the next day? Will I even have a home above my head? Like, yeah, it really does put things into perspective, and I don't know, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's a hard conversation that a lot of people, I feel like it should be talked about more. But a lot of people, I think, are just scared to reach that, because I think there's a fear in saying the wrong thing, which is, that's definitely valid. But also I feel like you won't learn unless you expose yourself to, those kinds of perspectives, right? Yeah. Yeah, I wish I could have these kinds of conversations with my friends. Like, it makes me, as someone of this generation, want to be the loud person that they hate.
Yes. I wanted to speak to specifically what you said about, like why are they being so loud? I think that's just what comes with being an immigrant. When you've like left your home to be in another country, it's like, I've made it to here this far. What can I do to stay here? And there's a lot of fear in that. And I believe what else that comes with it, just like built-in gratitude. You're expected to be grateful because you've been allowed to stay in this country. And like, sure, I am grateful. I am grateful for my parents who have sacrificed so much to immigrate here. And now I get this life, and I get these opportunities, and I get this safety and security. But that doesn't mean I'm indebted to this country, and it doesn't mean I have to love all its history and all it's doing currently.
Yeah.
And I think to like truly love a country, I'm not really for patriotism, but like to like, let's say whatever, to love a country is to want it to change and to want it to do better. So if I'm being loud, if I want systems to change, I want policies and laws to change because I want it to change it for the better.
Yeah.
And being quiet doesn't help with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That definitely that does make a lot of sense.
I was gonna ask, what was it like spending 6 months in the land of the colonizer?
You know what? I actually got to appreciate my Filipino heritage a lot more being in Spain. Like, I mean, I would make like side jokes and be like, oh, colonizer, or like, you're the reason why we have our names like this, so why are you surprised, blah 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 blah. I did go to this one street in Spain, I think it's Avenida de las Islas Filipinas, and they had a monument of Jose Rizal. He's like our national hero. He's in the 1 peso coin. And that was fun. A singular monument.
Existence of, evidence that we exist.
All of Spain. And a singular avenue. Yeah. I remember I posted it on my story, my close friends list, and I got a lot of hearts. And I'm like, the struggle. You know what's up.
I remember seeing that.
People tend to forget that the Philippines was a former colony of Spain because it's not in like South America.
Yeah.
Even like Asians like forget about that too, and I'm like, I've been hearing a lot, especially in high school, like, oh, but you're Filipinos, you're not like Asian, and I'm like, what the? So what am I? Like, come on, like, oh, I'm so confused.
Yes.
But at the same time that I got to appreciate my Filipino heritage, it also made me feel conflicted because there's a side of my family that's very much attached to their Hispanic roots. Like, they speak Spanish. Like, to this day, they converse in like Spanglish, slip in a little Filipino, but it's mostly Spanish. And the goal for me was always to find a nice Spanish man, get married, move to Spain, learn the language, and become fluent in Spanish. In Castellano, actually, not Spanish. So yeah, it was, it's still, I think I'm still figuring it out, but I just know that I appreciate the different kind of cultural ancestries my families have to offer. And of course, it helped a lot going back to the Philippines as well after being away. That's I think it was a smart move for me to spend an extra month in the Philippines.
Yes.
After doing the whole exchange thing and the solo traveling thing, because otherwise, if I had just come
straight back
here, I would have been so sad. But yeah, that was nice. Being a racial minority, being an Asian specifically, had both its ups and downs. I will talk about the dating scene there.
Yeah. Go for it.
I feel like, I mean, because I've also been learning this in my gender studies class, it's just like confirmed with the real life, my own real life experiences that Asians are heavily fetishized.
Yes.
You're probably the first one, and I guess the whole world, to know that maybe the reason why I pulled was because I was Asian, and the stereotypes that come with dating an Asian woman. And at the time, I was just like, all right, a win is a win, right? Like, let's just, for the plot, whatever, it's fine. But upon processing everything that has happened and kind of being reminded by it with the articles that I've been reading for the class, I'm just like, damn, like this is reality, and it's very real, and this is definitely something to put on the things that I got from generational trauma. Like, thank you, American imperialism, I guess.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. But yeah, that's the only other thing.
I mean, do you want to elaborate? Like, what are there certain instances you're recalling? Certain things you're thinking about?
How just specific do you want me to get?
Up to you. How specific do you want to share?
Oh, am I gonna put myself on blast now? Okay, it might have also been because I posed as like a North American.
Yeah.
So with what I found, and this is based off of just like not common knowledge, but like what I've been hearing, and it's almost like a stereotype, but what I've heard is that the European people like going for the North American because they're easier, right? And like hit it and quit it type situation. And maybe because I presented myself as a Canadian. But
it's also exotic because you're Asian.
Yeah. But then halfway through, I don't know if this is a bad thing on my character, but halfway through, I just stopped saying that I'm from Canada. I said I was from the Philippines, which I still do that.
Yeah.
Like, if someone were to ask me, complete stranger, where are you from? I will still say the Philippines because I was born and raised there. But yeah.
Well, okay. Was that switch because of that assumption?
A little bit, I want to say.
Yeah.
But I just feel like also when I meet someone, and it doesn't have to be Spanish, like the international students that I meet, if they're from America, I say I'm from Canada.
Yeah.
Because then there's more things that we have in common.
Yeah.
But like I've met a couple of Irish people, and I say I'm from the Philippines, and they said, "Oh, we vacationed in the Philippines for a really long time." So then there's that like topic of interest that we talked about, and that's fun because like I mostly say that I'm from the Philippines to really hear praise about the Philippines. I'm proud of my culture. Like, listen, yeah. And I like it when I hear other people who are not Filipino really enjoy the beaches and how they had such a good time. Yeah. So maybe it's a little bit egotistical of me to present myself that way.
Well, did that experience affect how you look at dating now? Or does it make you think about what does it mean to be attractive? What does it mean to be desirable? How does race play into that?
it did make me question why I was able to, or I did go on dates, or why some people found me interested and vice versa. Could have just been plain old sexual attraction.
Yeah.
But that the class that I'm doing right now, the gender studies, did bring a lot of reflection upon it. So I would like to say that there was like a genuine sexual attraction or some sort of connection, but I could be wrong. I could have been objectified and I didn't know it. But at the same time, it doesn't make me feel bad, because I also kind of just did the same. Let's be honest. I did hit it and quit it, So it's all fun and games.
Yeah. Okay, so it doesn't necessarily color your past experiences. That's just
no. But I think that class did definitely bring about a lot of reflecting over the past couple months. My position in a more, I guess, white society. Yeah. Because, again, that was probably the first time that I've been in a more white society. Or white dominant. Not really in the Philippines, not really here. I felt very comfortable with the Asian population, which is a very big one. So, yeah. Very interesting. Yeah. Make it all better. Gotta be the land of my colonizers. That's
just
great.
how it is.
That's just how it be. But yeah.
Okay. I was gonna ask, what do you think about the belief that to be queer and to have a relationship with God, that can't coexist, or like you have to have an issue with one or the other? What do you think about that, and do you think it holds true with your current relationship with both?
Not anymore. It used to definitely, like, my sexuality definitely used to be an issue, or I saw it as an issue when I was still figuring out myself and my identity. There's that whole saying, pray the gay away. And I think that's definitely something I've done when I was still figuring everything out, especially being on the recipient end of like certain reactions that weren't very welcoming and accepting. But I did later on find out that they can be having a relationship with God and being queer can coexist. And you don't necessarily need two different personas for it to live, not happily, but like to just coexist. Yeah. And it really boils down to, I think, my personal relationship with God. Once I accepted that it was okay for me to be queer, and also once I figured out that my relationship and God is not necessarily based on the rules that I followed, that one, the church had like outlined for everybody else and they just said you should follow it. It's really more just like how I treat and talk to God. So yeah, I just got really comfortable with my own personal relationship with God, which helped me become comfortable with who I am. And maybe there was some point in, during my discovery of myself where I was in denial because, let's face it, to be queer and to be Catholic is quite hard, especially when you bring the family into it. You have all these like familial pressures and certain standards that you have to meet. And like the lingering fear of if I were to end up with a girl and I became serious and it ended up being a serious relationship and I'd have to bring her home to meet the family. Like that's something that I was incredibly worried about. But I mean, I came out to my parents, and if anything, those were the two people that really mattered when it comes to accepting me, if anything. So once I got over that, I was able to find that I can be still a practicing Catholic, and I still have a relationship with God, and also be queer, because God forgives. I mean, I guess. I don't wear
Supposedly.
this. Supposedly.
Apparently.
But yeah.
What would you say to someone who was maybe struggling with something similar? Who was like looking at their relationship with God and their sexuality? What would you say to them? Any words of wisdom?
Any words of wisdom? I feel like you can find God in your support system. So if you feel like you're having any doubts, at least when I was having doubts about whatever, anything to do with my sexuality, those were the times where I felt quite alone.
Yeah.
So if anything, it's always good to talk to a person or a group of people that you feel incredibly comfortable with, and you feel like you can like lean your shoulder on when like times get a little bit rough, and talk to them about it. Because I think just talking to someone that you know that cares for you can go a long way, even if they don't technically have to give you advice on how to like live your life, because it is your life, and it's a struggle that is unique to you. Nobody else, even if they are struggling with something similar, it's still, you know, perceived differently. Everybody else is different. So yeah, I think just like finding out your support group, and also kind of having the courage to reach out to them.
Yeah.
Because it does take a lot of courage to even talk to them about something so sensitive. I mean, it was sensitive for me. Yeah.
So to find community,
is
what you would.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be family too, right? You can always, there's this thing called a found family, and it can be also a community that you find like online, where they're just, you know, really there for you. You don't really have to know them.
Moving to Canada, it gave you independence almost, in a sense. Like, it allowed you to live more independently. And it makes me think about my perception of you growing up and also now. I used to tell my mom this all the time, like, Moira's so independent. I've always come off as someone that's really independent and responsible, but also extremely connected to family. Do you feel like that rings true?
Yeah. When I said that Canada gave me the opportunity to be more independent, that's definitely true in the most general sense. But I think it's also tied to like what had happened like during the formative high school years. My dad was sick. He was sick for a very long time, and it got to a point where he's like the eldest in his family, and his parents are actually, they live here now too, and most of the siblings live here as well. So for the longest time, our family was living in the big house with our grandparents. So he had taken on also as like the eldest of the family, the older brother, the caregiver role to the parents. When he got sick, of course, it was harder for him to do that. So the responsibility kind of shifted to us.
Yeah.
So I think my independence just comes from acquiring that kind of responsibility. Which again, I am super grateful for, because if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be able to like cook for like a family of like 10 minimum. Like I could have lived by myself by the end of high school.
Yes, for sure.
If I just had the money or like the financial means, all the skills that I acquired from that experience, and all those, the obligations and the responsibility, I could have easily done it, no problem. But that being said, yeah, I think there's something about growing up with a sick parent that just makes you feel like it's harder to not be connected with the family.
Yeah.
And I even got, like, there was a moment just before I left for Spain where I felt really guilty that I was leaving. Like, even if I was reassured by both my parents and my sister that they were gonna be fine, I was just like, okay, but what if something happens and I'm not there? Because I've been there for so long.
Yeah.
So it had to take a lot of convincing of my mom's part to be like, you have to go on this exchange. Like, you need to experience it and you need to figure out who you are to some capacity, even if you don't really do an air of self-discovery during exchange. I think this is essential for you because you have dealt with a lot growing up. And I think she even told me, I think that you're downplaying it or undermining it a little bit because I'm someone who's not confrontational, and because of that I like to repress a lot of what I'm feeling. That's like how I cope with my mental health issues. I cry for like 13 minutes and then I'd be like,
time's
okay,
up.
what was that for? That was so dumb. But yeah, to answer your question, that independence definitely came from having to care for someone who's supposed to be my caregiver. Yeah.
Do you feel like that experience caused you to grow up a lot faster?
Yeah, I didn't realize it until later on, because I would be hearing a lot of comments, especially with like my family friends as parents. They would be like, oh, I like that you're hanging out with Moira because she's so mature. That's like probably the biggest compliment I got from Filipino parents. You're so mature, you're so responsible. And I'm like, I didn't really see it, especially because like when I was a kid, I'm like, I lose a lot of stuff, so like how am I responsible? But I didn't really realize it until I had come into terms with, growing up with a sick parent, and I became like less emotional trying to talk about it. Because I mean, at one point it was still very fresh. And I feel like even when he was okay, even after high school is when I felt the most emotional, because I don't think I processed it properly as a kid. Young. Yeah. So when I got over that, or really when I grew from that, it's when I was just like, yeah, I mean, that's kind of like to me, it might be a backhanded kind of compliment.
Yeah.
It's not that I wanted to mature.
Because you had
I just
your
had to.
circumstances
I was put in that situation.
Caused you to.
But I mean, thank you. They put a lot of trust in me only to find out that I could be a very bad influence to their kids. So anyway, works out for me, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you could say something to your younger self, what would you say?
This is such a hard question.
Or would you say anything? Or I guess
to my younger self, like how young?
Up to you. Like when I said younger self, was there an age that materialized for you?
Actually, yeah, there is a like fresh off the boat Moira.
Okay.
Like just immigrated type thing.
What would you say to her? What do you think she needs to hear?
That's honestly to kind of be present, to be a little bit more present, because I didn't really fully appreciate the impact of me leaving the Philippines. And I think that had affected the first couple years of living here. Like, I was pretty much homesick a lot, to a point where I think I became unhomesick like on the 3rd year mark. And I'm like, okay, I don't know if that's like being homesick anymore. Maybe that's some like mental issue, something repressed down there. So yeah, to appreciate things like that, yeah, to just be very present, and that to be less pessimistic. Although I feel like I choked it up as something as realistic than pessimism, like realism instead of pessimism. Yeah. But no, for real, I was like a pessimistic kid growing up. So, yeah. And pretty much the goals that I had at the time was kind of the same. Just also the fact that I was able to go on exchange. It would have been a long, long journey. Multiple tries, but you did it, and you did it at a good time. It came at a very good time. You know, it was just meant to be, I guess. And yeah, to also enjoy that time, because I don't know how I'm gonna be in the next couple months. Let's be real. We'll see if that's gonna do something. Oh, and also, go to therapy. I feel like if I had done that earlier, I would have been able to process things a lot better. That being said, therapy also isn't for everyone, right? No. So maybe more like not go to therapy, but entertain the fact that you might not be mentally stable. Because I found that quite late. And I think I would have been more secure as a person had I entertained something like that, had I thought it was an option for me to do. But that's also growing up Asian, so yeah.
It's just how it is.
It's just generational trauma, you know? But yeah, be present, be open-minded, and yeah.
And maybe seek therapy.
Maybe consider it, for sure.
Or just like
now that you're in Canada, right? Yeah, you know, don't repress that, because that's gonna mess with your head. Yeah.
Any last thoughts?
I just hope I give you content that's not totally scrappable.
No.